From the plant Cannabis sativa L, we can get many products, from fiber for clothing, to cellulose for methanol fuel conversion, from oil for cooking, to a high-protein food supplement, from a green natural fertilizer to a highly useful medicine. Cannabis can supply all the raw material necessary for production. In this film, we are going to look at the medicinal use of cannabis. It should be noted at this point that currently the term used to describe the drug portion of this plant is marijuana. The use of the term, however, is incorrect. It would be more scientifically correct to refer to the medicinal substances obtained from the plant as cannabis or cannabis preparations. The history of cannabis use in medicine is widely documented in both Eastern and Western medical literature. Its medical use is noted in Chinese documents dating back to 2500 BC. The first Western documentation of cannabis's medicinal properties is in 1547 when the plant is scientifically named Cannabis sativa. It wasn't until the 1830s that Dr. O'Shaughnessy makes note of cannabis's medicinal qualities in his paper titled On the Preparations of the Indian Hemp or Ganja. In this work, he notes the botanical description of the cannabis plant with remarkable accuracy, taking special note of the calyx, covered with brown glands, on the female plant. He also notes the fibers of the stems are long and extremely tenacious, so as to afford the best tissue for cordage, and further that the seed is devoid of all narcotic properties. Dr. O'Shaughnessy, in his report, described the chemical properties of the plant. He also describes in great detail the medicinal properties and conditions to be treated with cannabis prepared in a variety of forms. From the mid-1800s through the late 1900s, many articles were written on the uses of cannabis as a medicinal substance. It is apparent from the vast amount of literature available on medicinal cannabis that the medical profession thought highly of cannabis and considered it a very safe and effective drug. As with any medication, it was prescribed for conditions that warranted its use. Until the late 1930s, many different conditions were treated with cannabis. Cannabis was commonly used as a calmative, as a hypnotic, as a sleep aid, to control muscular spasm, to control uterine contractions, to arrest uterine hemorrhage, use in labor, for neurologic pain, and many other disorders. It was 1937 when the federal government, under pressure, passed the Marijuana Tax Act. This act was meant to restrict the use of the plant. In the late 1950s, that law was ruled unconstitutional. At the same time, an act was developed to replace that law. Eventually, this law became the Controlled Substances Act of 1970. This law classified many different substances into several broad categories. Cannabis was placed in the most restrictive category, Schedule 1. A Schedule 1 substance is considered by the governmental agencies as a substance with no legitimate medical use and a high potential for abuse. Despite the large and ever-growing body of evidence that cannabis and cannabis preparations have a legitimate medical use, the government continues to deny its use. In 1987, the U.S. courts told the Drug Enforcement Agency to hold hearings on the medical use of cannabis. After 2 years of hearings and evidence provided by both sides, the DEA law judge, Francis Young, gave his decision. Quote, "Based upon the foregoing facts and reasoning, the administrative law judge concludes that the provisions of the Act allow and require the transfer of marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. The evidence in this record clearly shows that marijuana has been accepted as being capable of relieving the distress of great numbers of very ill people. The judge recommends that the administrator transfer marijuana from Schedule I to Schedule II. Signed, Francis L. Young, Administrative Law Judge, DEA. Today, we have added several new disorders to the list. These include glaucoma, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, and cancer. In recent months, the U.S. Health and Human Services, along with the Public Health Services, have tried to shut down the compassionate investigative new drug program in regards to marijuana. In the past year, we have been able to interview a number of patients who use marijuana either legally or illegally. At this point, I think it is important to hear what they have to say.
Hi, my name's George McMahon. In 1987, my doctors wouldn't release me from the hospital. I had to release myself. At the time, they wrote me a letter that said, "George, you're terminally ill." And I said, "Well, what does that mean? How many days do I have to live?" And they said, "We can't tell you. We don't think you'll make it home." So my wife came and got me, and I came home. And I started a daily routine of smoking marijuana. I'd been able to smoke marijuana off and on all my life. We knew there was something wrong. I needed to smoke marijuana for 20 years. But nobody would believe me, and doctors would believe me, but didn't know how to help me. After the episode of my health in 1987, which just culminated a lifetime of bad health, they had given up hope. They actually stated that I couldn't even be made comfortable anymore, that they were giving me morphine and the very strongest of painkillers, as well as psychotics, and on and on and on. I could list them, but it would take too long. So to give you an idea, that at one time I took 17 pills a day and was laying in my hospital bed cut right in half. And they told me, "You only have a short period of time to live." I called my wife and said, "Please come get me, I need to come home." Some teenage kids came over to my house and wanted to buy a car, and I was laying on the hospital bed, and my wife was afraid I was dying. I was dying. They said, "We'll give you some marijuana for that car that we picked along the road, because we know you used to smoke it, and maybe that'll help you." Some kids said that to me. I'd been thinking along the same lines too, and I smoked it. And I've been, since that moment, I think since maybe the first day, continually getting better, or at least being comfortable most of the time. And to me, that has improved the quality of my life so much that I'm actually better. And that's impossible. My letter says that I am progressively, advanced terminally ill. It's a genetic defect, they can't stop it. Since 15 months ago, I began legally smoking marijuana. At this point, I'm holding in my hand a letter that states I'm not only comfortable, the quality of my life is improved to the point that I can get up and walk around, and I can spend time with my friends. I can occasionally go out. I can do it as often as I feel up to it, leave my house and go somewhere. And that's not anything that was optional to me in 1987. I was in a hospital bed and I was dying. I wasn't going to live much longer. What makes me so mad is it's my right, but it's not everybody's right. When I talk to people, from doctors to lawmakers to on and on and on, I get the same attitude. They don't tell me it's wrong. They tell me, "God, look at you, it's right." Then how can it be right for me and right for 34 other people, but not right for everybody? It just doesn't make sense. There's people dying. There's people going to prison. There's people whose quality of life has been changed beyond repair because of the regulations against the use of marijuana as medicine. I think probably everybody who would risk 5 years of their lifetime, everything they own, to smoke a cigarette, the only possible reason they would do that is because it's medicine. So at this point, you got to stop and think about it. Would you risk 5 years of your life for anything other than something that was making your life quality of life better? I don't think so. the rules need to be changed. One of the things that's been discussed is the types of ailments that would use marijuana, or the types of things that would be wrong with people. And everybody kind of thinks, well, I'm a specific group, and in reality we're all in one group, because the types, my protocol is for pain and spasm and nausea. Those three things are the three major things that the chemo patient has, that the AIDS patient has, that the MS patient has. The chemo patient has intense nausea, life-threatening nausea when he has chemotherapy, and approximately 30% of the time while he is in chemotherapy. The AIDS patient needs appetite help because of his nausea, and that's also why my protocol was written. That's part of my problem, is that you have nausea, you don't want to eat. The pain part comes from a lot of body damage, cut nerves, muscle damage, which also pertains a lot to the muscle spasms that I have. Also the problem that I have back injuries that cause spasms in my legs. That puts me into the same category as, for instance, the MS patients. So we have a whole lot of groups of people who can use marijuana. For instance, another one is people with migraine headaches, So you have this whole large group, but they're all different. But all of us are like in that we have major illness, and it isn't something that goes away tomorrow. So if you include all of these things, pretty much we're all one big group. We're not each individual group. The AIDS patients, the MS patients, the people who have some orphan thing like I do that are just one or two of me in the United States maybe, are not one or two of me in the United States. All of the people are my peers. I have some of the same things going on that almost all of them do. So I would say that basically that puts us all in the same group. And they seem to interspace with each other. A nausea is not just a patient problem for AIDS and MS patients. It's a big problem for anybody that's taken toxic medication. And we can go on and on and on and tie all of these things together by just maybe the slightest thread. But if you're sick, you're sick. And you need to do something about it, and it's not go to prison, and it's not feel bad about medicating. Those things are wrong.
I'm Terry, and I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in 87, and it's chronic progressive.
Why don't you show us what it looks like before you medicate, how you're...
I shake like that until I have my medicine. And once I have a dosage, I can move my legs and my hands don't hardly shake at all.
You mentioned medicine. What kind of medicine is it that you're referring to?
Marijuana.
Have your condition?
I think this is the best medication a person could get. I think they're depriving the benefits from a lot of people.
My name is Lad Huffman. I'm 42 years old. I have multiple sclerosis. I've had it since '77. They have to try it to prove it to themselves, because I didn't believe it. To begin with, I was skeptical. I believed I smoked it because I like to smoke it. But I found out when I didn't have it that my symptoms were so much more severe. And if you try it, you'll find that it'll help the symptoms. I couldn't say it would help everybody, but I know it'll help some people. The doctor, if he cares about his patient at all, he should make an effort to give them the best care possible. It's a nightmare. You have to fill out reams of paper, and it takes months and months and months. I've been approved since this fall, and I still haven't gotten any product yet. It's a real hassle. It's unnecessary.
The problem we have now is that, like me, I finally made it through the program. Now none of the doctors tell me that it's anything bad. Only policemen do that, and only a few of them. I hear that occasionally. I'll hear a policeman say, well, marijuana is bad for you. As a rule, nobody says it's bad for you, because I'm living proof that it's not, that it's actually good medicine if used as medicine. I don't know about anything else. I don't even try to think about that. But a lot of my friends right now need this medicine, are using this medicine, and are risking everything they own. When, from all the way from the White House Drug Policy Commission, to the drug czar, who have recommended that Health and Human Services let loose this stranglehold they have on the supplies of the marijuana and let the patients who have been approved have marijuana. Right now we think that's about 30 people. I don't have any way of knowing, because I'm not a politician or anything. I'm just a person who knows a lot of sick people now. Since people heard about me, they've been writing me letters, they've been calling me on the telephone, they've been coming to my house, and we've been making sure that other people knew about it, knew about us. We're not alone. You are not alone. Even the White House recommends that they cut loose the supplies, that the supplies are there. They have asked, I believe it was James Mason or possibly Louis Sullivan, to stop holding back the supplies. And Health and Human Services, anyhow, is the one right now that's stopping these patients from getting it. Many of them are terminally ill. Their quality of life suffers terribly. Nobody that's healthy has a right to do that to me. If they took away my right to smoke marijuana, I would still go get marijuana and smoke it. I could not help it. I would die if I didn't have it. Of all the diseases that I've heard, I believe it may be an absolute stop for glaucoma. It may stop glaucoma completely. It seems to. It seems to do that to MS, or at least slow it down drastically. And for me, it might even have made me a little better. I've gained 8 pounds in the last 2 months, and that's literally impossible for a person who has what I have to do in the condition that I'm in, because I can't eat or sleep or etc. I was watching a slow, all my life I've watched a slow, progressive disability. In other words, what I could do when I was 18, I couldn't do when I was 20. What I could do when I was 20, I couldn't do when I was 25. And so to the point that all I could do was lay in the bed and squirm and yell. That even morphine no longer made me comfortable. Marijuana makes me comfortable. I'm the proof that you need. Please give it to the other people. Man, they are the proof that you need. They're there, they're using it, and they're risking their life. These are people that can't fight. We don't have the energy, and we don't have the means. You pretty much sucked most of them dry. The doctors got everything they had. There's nothing they can, pay to do this anymore. The doctors, the biggest drug pushers in the world, we all agree, and those of us that are sick think so a whole lot more than those of us who are not sick. I had one 3-month period cost me $300,000. I don't want any of my friends to go through that. They're already using it. It is medicine. Make it Schedule II now, and we'll apply for permits to make it available to patients. Pure, without chemicals, and what's needed. Taking the active ingredients out of it, raping the plant, making it as bad as you can, could cause me to have lung trouble. We want that stopped. We want the government to either give us a decent supply of something that doesn't hurt us because we have to use so much of it. And we would like it scheduled too. We're not asking for a lot. These are patients. These aren't people out raping or having, as Mr. Mason has suggested, having promiscuous sex and spreading AIDS.
Well, I was the first patient to receive legal access to marijuana in 1976. And I wouldn't recommend the way I went about getting it. I was arrested for growing 4 marijuana plants and had to go to court and demonstrate. My use of marijuana was not criminal, but an act of medical necessity. And in order to prove that, I had to go through 2 controlled medical studies, one at UCLA and one at Johns Hopkins. And even after those studies were done, it took another several months for federal agencies to respond to my request for legal access to government supplies. Since that time, the federal government has codified the procedures for getting legal access to marijuana through what's called a compassionate IND program. The compassionate IND program has existed for 13 years. It has assisted patients with a variety of very serious diseases, all of which are life or sense threatening: glaucoma, cancer, multiple sclerosis, paralysis, and most recently AIDS. Works. And Tim and his doctor got a hold of me in the fall of last year. Tim had realized as an AIDS patient that marijuana was critically helpful in terms of appetite stabilization and also in terms of helping to reduce the intense nausea and vomiting that can be caused by AZT and other forms of anti-AIDS therapy. Obviously, if you can eat and maintain your weight, you're in a better position to fight your disease.
How many people have you successfully helped get marijuana?
Over the years, maybe 40. Currently, of those still alive, there are 12 people who are using marijuana legally in the United States. There are another 50 people who, like Tim, have received FDA permission to use marijuana, but have received no supplies. This permission is meaningless in the absence of such supply. I'm trapped in a bureaucratic battle over how to handle medical marijuana, and the essence of that battle is being fought between those who believe the government's attitude should be somewhat compassionate, and if marijuana can help people, it should be available, and another group of people who could be described as war on drugs hardliners, who really don't give a damn about the welfare of seriously ill people, and who just want to fight an ideological battle over drug use.
Tim, you do use marijuana, right?
Yes.
How do you get it now?
Well, I just have to, go out in the streets and get it. For a while, because of a program I was in, a housing program, you weren't supposed to drink or use any other drugs like that. And I was having such a problem with the nausea and stuff and everything, like I mentioned before, where I couldn't have anything in my stomach, I couldn't hold it down, and I'd retch so hard that I would, break vessels inside myself from that. And one day I just decided, well, if they kick me out of the program, they kick me out of the program. There was a part of a joint that my roommate had there, and I puffed on it, and it was like night and day, the nausea. I'm convinced, and my doctor's convinced, that this is one of the things that has kept me going past the time they said I had, So this is like a life and death thing to me.
In this film, we are going to look at the commercial value of cannabis sativa. It should be noted that cannabis is presently referred to as marijuana by today's governments. It should also be noted that in most languages, hemp means a fibrous plant used to make rope. While it is true that true hemp is cannabis, in today's linguistics, hemp means many things. In this film, when we use the word hemp, we mean Cannabis sativa L, or other agronomical varieties of the genus Cannabis. For purposes of clarity, we will not look at the pharmaceutical aspects of this plant. When we refer to the commercial applications, it may be clear to think of industrial or product-producing capabilities. Hemp is a remarkable plant. In the making of this film, many facts were uncovered about this very capable plant. Hemp is capable of increasing the productivity of the American economy and at the same time improving the quality of the environment. This fact will become clear during this film. In the early 1900s, experiments on hemp, along with other farm crops, showed that they had the ability to produce many more products than were currently being manufactured from them. In the case of cannabis, the products that were manufactured from hemp were limited. At the same time, methods of production were increasing. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, in a bid to help the farmer find new markets for his products, sponsored experiments in alternative raw materials from farm waste to manufacture products. We are going to examine several of the thousands of viable applications to which parts of the hemp plant can be applied. Much of the information about hemp's commercial applications was obtained from U.S. government records. Due to time constraints, we will examine those uses that will have the most drastic effects on economy and the environment, while at the same time remaining economically practical. In order to understand the commercial value of the cannabis plant, we must first understand the makeup of the plant itself. The plant is essentially made up of leaf, seed, flowers, and stalks. In this presentation, we will be examining the use of the stalks and the seed in the production of commercial products, and the use of the plant as a green natural fertilizer. The stalks are essentially made up of 20 to 40% fiber and 60 to 80% celluloid herds. There is a small amount of lignin, but for most applications this is insignificant. The seeds are essentially made up of a hull and germplasm. The plasm has a high oil content between 40 and 50% by weight, and a similar content of protein. The stalks of the cannabis plant can be used to manufacture many different materials, from the production of plastics to methanol fuel, from the production of wood products. One of the most useful products that can be made from cannabis is paper. In the production of paper from trees, many harmful chemicals are used. Chemicals like chlorine and sulfuric acid. These chemicals produce many harmful side effects, including dioxin, sulfur, air pollution, water pollution, and soil contamination. In addition, the deforestation that is conducted to supply the raw materials results in harmful side effects like erosion, extinction, and habitat destruction. Using hemp, that age-old standby, we can eliminate all of these harmful effects on the environment and add billions to the farm economy in the process. With current rates of production that are evident in other countries producing hemp, the U.S. farm economy could reap a minimum of $20 to $30 billion per year in the production of hemp for paper. Additionally, we would not be required to reduce the production of other crops such as corn, soybeans, or wheat. We would only need to plant slightly more than 1/2% of the available farmland to supply the U.S. with all of its paper requirements. By utilizing hemp as a paper source, as our forefathers did, it would effectively stop all deforestation required to produce paper for the United States. Methanol fuel for transportation. Everyone agrees that one of the greatest threats to our national security is our dependence on foreign sources of oil for the production of fuel. Yet again, we have been given the opportunity to make ourselves energy secure, not by relying on a non-renewable substance such as coal, oil, or natural gas, not by relying on questionable safety with nuclear power, not by relying on future technology such as solar, wind, steam, or cold fusion, but by going back to the basics of farm-produced energy. The first internal combustion engines were designed to be run on methanol produced from farm wastes. Hemp herds were such a farm waste. Current technology exists to produce from 1 acre of hemp the equivalent of 20 barrels of oil in the form of methanol fuel or charcoalized materials. With modifications to current engines, most cars would run on methanol. Currently, there is not enough material abundant enough to supply the United States' needs for fuel production. That is, unless you legalize the production of cannabis hemp. It is evident that cannabis is the only plant that can be grown cheap enough and in enough quantity to supply our fuel needs. Because the requirements for supply are severe, hemp for fuel would need to be grown in regions where the maximum quantities per acre are produced. For the United States to be able to remove the transportation sector of our fuel needs from reliance upon petroleum, we would need to dedicate 50 million acres to hemp. Again, this would not affect any other crops that are currently being grown. We would only need 0.5% of the available farmland to fuel our cars and trucks with hemp-based methanol. This would, in turn, generate some $30 to $40 billion for the farm economy and reduce, if not eliminate, our dependence on touchy foreign oil sources. The environment would also benefit from the switch to methanol and farm-based fuels. When petroleum products are burned, many products are given off. In most cases, lead, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, water vapor, and other trace elements. When methanol fuels are burned, the byproducts are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and a few trace elements. With petroleum products, the carbon and sulfur dioxides have been trapped and taken out of the life cycle millions of years ago. To burn them releases them back into the cycle, and this overburdens the cycle. When you make methanol from plant material grown in the cycle, the carbon that is released during burning is taken up by the plants during cultivation. This closes the cycle. Hemp is a remarkable plant in a particular aspect of its growth. Being a member of one of the highest orders of plants, it removes tremendous amounts of CO2 from the air during its growth. There is evidence to lead us to believe that if hemp were to be used for fuel production, it would remove more greenhouse gases during cultivation than would be given off when burned as a fuel. This is in part because a large percentage of the crop, the leaves, fall off during growth and are replaced by new ones. Additionally, when the crop is harvested, a sizable percentage of the crop, the root system, remains behind as a natural fertilizer and erosion controller. Hemp as a food source. Hemp seed was once a major part of human and animal diets. During the Dark Ages, peasants lived on hemp seed's high nutritional value. In addition, the oils were used much like we use sunflower, corn, or other vegetable oils today in cooking. Hemp seed is high in protein. In fact, the only other plant to produce more is the soybean. But hemp seed, unlike soybean, has a higher content of digestible protein. Hemp seed also contains ingredients called essential fatty acids. Like the name implies, they are essential to proper body functioning. They mainly affect the immune system's functioning capabilities. Without an ample supply of essential fatty acids in your diet, your immune system doesn't function as it should. This allows you to contract disease more readily and take longer to cure. Unfortunately, the sterilized hemp seed that is available today has been reduced by sterilization to a barely usable substance. In some cases, the sterilized seed has been deadly to small animals after it had turned rancid. With the removal of cannabis seed from the Controlled Substances Act, we could assist doctors in the fight against disease and malnutrition by utilizing hemp seed's capabilities. Hemp seed would be a valuable addition to the animal feed we currently use. Currently, we use a lot of hormones to fatten faster, to get to market quicker, in order to make it profitable for the farmer to produce food. By using hemp seed in the animals' diets, the high protein and essential fatty acids would do naturally what hormones and medications do artificially. This would also open the doors that have been shut to American meat products overseas because of our current production methods. If hemp seed were to be cultivated as a food source, it could generate an untold sum of revenues for the American farmer. Estimates vary from $5 to $10 billion annually just from the animal feed side of hemp seed production. The human food side of the equation could double that. Hemp is one of the strongest, most durable, most absorbent, underutilized fibers known to modern man. In the production of our most utilized fiber, cotton, we need to use over 50% of all of the pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that are produced. This in turn produces very detrimental effects on the environment like agricultural runoff. Cotton, though it's a natural fiber, can hardly be called natural when you figure in the unnatural material used to produce the crop. Hemp, on the other hand, requires no fertilizers, no herbicides, or pesticides to produce the crop. Cotton has a drinking problem. It likes lots of water. In the former Soviet Union, they have literally sucked an ocean dry to fulfill cotton's thirst. Hemp, in most regions, does not require additional water. Of course, in arid or dry regions, water would be necessary to grow anything, including hemp. If hemp were to replace cotton, the farm economy would reap a benefit. The first benefit would be a reduction in the cost of producing fiber. As hemp doesn't require the chemicals and water cotton requires, it's cheaper to produce. The second benefit would be a reduction of farm runoff. Again, no chemicals, no pollution. Because hemp is cheaper to produce, its cost would be lower than that of cotton. This in turn would reduce the cost of materials made from hemp fiber, which in turn would spur the economy forward with additional expendable income for further purchases, spurring the economy even further. The value of hemp to the farm economy as a fiber source would be approximately $10 to $20 billion annually. We have looked at only 4 of the 50,000 possible uses for hemp. What have we learned? First, hemp will be worth in excess of $100 billion annually to the U.S. farm economy. Second, that for the commercial cultivation of hemp, only 1 to 5% of the available farmland will be necessary, and the cultivation of hemp will not interfere with the production of other farm products. Third, that the products made from hemp will be produced using far less chemicals and far less environmentally damaging techniques. Fourth, products made from hemp will be less expensive and in most cases last longer than currently produced products. Fifth, and probably most important, it makes good sense. Throughout history, the farmer and the lands have been a means of producing profit. The farmer has, for thousands of years, produced the food, the fuel, the fiber, the medicine. Today, the farmer is relegated producing food and some fiber, all at below the cost of production. It's no wonder the farmers are going out of business. In times past, when the prices or conditions forced a reduction in revenue from one crop, the farmer could rely on another, in a way, to sort of subsidize the other crop. If the food crop went bad, the fiber or the fuel crop could be profitable, or vice versa. Today, when the farm crop goes bad, the government subsidizes the farmer. This causes our taxes to be raised to pay for it. The farmer spends more time filling out forms for government assistance than he does farming anymore. The time has come to put an end to this insane madness. The time has come to let the farmers produce the food, the fuel, the fiber, the medicine. It's time to let the farmers produce cannabis sativa, hemp.